My name is Claire Thomas, and I'm the president of Florida State College at Jacksonville's chapter of Phi Theta Kappa, Upsilon Eta. I would like to welcome you to this special occasion in honor of our members and inductees. We are here to celebrate their academic achievement and excellence. Please find a link to this evening's program in the chat area of our WebEx events platform. Please also note that we will be recording the event so that you and your loved ones can enjoy it in the future. Today, November 19th, 2021, is Phi Theta Kappa Founders Day, which marks the 103rd anniversary of our Honor Society. In addition to recognizing our students' success this evening, we celebrate the founding of this time-honored organization. At this time, I wish to recognize the faculty, staff, and administrators who are in attendance to support our inductees this evening. In addition, please join me in giving a special round of virtual applause to our distinguished college leaders who will be speaking this evening. Dr. John Avendano, College President, Dr. Linda Herlocker, Vice President of Student Services, and Dr. John Wall, Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs. I would also like to recognize my fellow officers in the Upsilon Eta chapter. The officers of Upsilon Eta. Vice President of Scholarship, Essa Al-Nasrallah. Vice President of Service, Lolita Miller. Vice President of Leadership, Max Eberbach. Vice President of Fellowship, Stephanie Serrano. Please join me in expressing our heartfelt appreciation to Phi Theta Kappa Faculty Advisor, Dr. Mary James, Faculty Advisor Emeritus, Dr. Henry Moreland, and Staff Advisor, Steve Miller.
At this time, I'm honored to introduce Dr. John Avendano, FSCJ College President and recipient of the PTK Distinguished Administrator Award, the Shirley B. Gordon Award, and Michael Bennett Lifetime Achievement Award. Dr. Avendano will now share words of wisdom for our new inductees.
Thank you, Lolita, and thank you to all of the officers and the advisors for Upsilon Eta's chapter of Phi Theta Kappa. It is truly my honor to be able to be here with you this evening. And on behalf of the District Board of Trustees, our faculty, our staff, and your colleagues, the students, I want to extend our heartfelt congratulations to all of our inductees here this evening. I also want to extend our congratulations to all the family members and the spouses and friends of our inductees, because it is through the support that you provide our inductees that allows them to be successful and reach their goals and accomplishments. So congratulations to each and every one of you. Over my career, I've had the opportunity to be supportive and be involved with Phi Theta Kappa for nearly 20 years. And through that time period, I've had the privilege to participate in nearly 35 different inductions. And as I understand for tonight, we have about 118 Phi Theta Kappans being inducted tonight. And I can honestly say that this will be the largest induction ceremony that I've had to be a part of. In addition to being part of the induction ceremonies, I've had the joy of accompanying our students to various different international conventions over the years. To me, I found those to be the most exhilarating conferences that I've ever had the opportunity to participate in. If you ever get the opportunity to do so, I would encourage you all to be an officer at our chapter, but then also to participate at the local and at the international level. I am also proud to say that two of my own children have been Phi Theta Kappans in the past, both of them serving in officer roles. So I've had a very active participation with Phi Theta Kappa over my career. I'm very proud to say I'm a supporter for Phi Theta Kappa. As you go forward in your career as inductees to Phi Theta Kappa, I would ask you to reflect on the four pillars of scholarship, leadership, fellowship, and service. And these are the pillars that make Phi Theta Kappa what it is today. Equally important, please know that FSCJ is proud of each and every one of you. We're proud of who you are as a student and who you will become as a leader in our community, around the state, and across the country. So until I see you again, I congratulate each and every one of our inductees. I welcome you into Phi Theta Kappa, and I look forward to seeing your leadership and your involvement to our community. Thank you and congratulations.
Dr. Avadano, thank you for your most sincere words of inspiration.
It is now my honor to introduce Dr. Linda Herlocker, FSCJ Vice President of Student Services and a lifelong supporter of Phi Theta Kappa, with a special focus on the transformative power of lifelong learning. Dr. Herlocker will be delivering this evening's keynote address via a pre-recorded video.
Good evening. I'm always surprised when I'm invited to speak, since I don't think of myself as having anything particularly significant to say. But as your PTK leaders were helping me consider potential topics, among those suggested was lifelong learning, and that struck me. Because after all, each of you made it here to a Phi Theta Kappa induction ceremony, so it's clear that you know how to learn. But then I wondered whether you really understand the physiology of learning. What happens to that 3-pound lump of stuff between your ears known as your brain, and how your college experience impacts that? I thought it might be interesting to talk this evening about learning in 3 contexts that I hope are relevant to you. Before I start, though, a couple of disclaimers. I'm not a biologist, AI developer, biochemist, or neuroscientist. I'm no Mayim Bialik. I'm just a person who has spent a lot of years both as a student and as a leader of folks both inside and outside of higher ed. And at some point, it occurred to me that learning about how the mind works, how the brain actually evolves and processes, was far more valuable to me than reading books about leadership or management. For me, being a good leader is really about being a good student of both formal education and in life. So an understanding of the physiology of learning from a layperson's point of view is the best life hack ever, in my opinion, and that's why I thought this was a good topic for tonight. I plan to frame the discussion around 3 questions. The first is one that might not have occurred to you until now, and once I ask it, it'll probably keep you up at night, and here it is. What have they, FSCJ, done to me? How did we impact your brain in an actual physiological sense? Second, the natural follow-up question, can you take charge of reshaping your brain? Once you know how learning works, can you control it? And finally, what's coming down the pike for your future brain? Let's start by looking at what learning is. We each enter the world relatively helpless and, except for managing most of our own basic biology, fairly non-functional. But for 9 months pre-birth, we were already taking in sensory input, which the brain was organizing along neural pathways that formed at an alarming rate. Every exposure created new pathways, reinforced those under construction, or removed ones no longer needed. This brain plasticity allows the newborn to learn almost immediately to control his or her environments by making certain sounds or gestures. Ask any parent with a baby about the fake cry sometime, and you'll hear all about who's really in control. Pretty soon, the baby's neural network connects the whole body to the world, and there's a new dimension of learning through reaching, grabbing, crawling, and touching. As expected, the pathways become increasingly complex as the tasks become more difficult. At the same time, efficiency increases with repetition until the learning becomes hardwired. Think about learning a language to some level of proficiency or fluency, for example. The more often you hear certain words, the sooner your brain creates a network wherein eventually you no longer have to translate in your mind. Here's what you may not have realized. Pathways created for one purpose can be repurposed for another. For example, the same pathways that evolved in learning to read might be engaged in the process of learning an instrument. Just as we learn to associate combinations of letters with sounds, which are connected to meaning, we learn to associate written notes with musical tones and so on. That's where FSCJ comes in, and this is the big reveal where I tell you what we've done to you, or rather what we're doing to your brain. So spoiler alert, although the course content is important, it is equally important that your brain develops certain neural pathways to be repurposed over and over in life. My own educational experience illustrates how this works. I was an English major, so I wasn't particularly excited for my college-level math classes. You may be able to relate to that. Granted, I do use the content more than I thought I would for things like budgets and enrollment projections and so on. There's that. But more importantly, the pathways developed while learning different flavors of math now allow me to solve other kinds of problems. For example, the logic of algebraic expressions apply to building logical arguments in language. The principles of order of operations apply to project management, and the concept of Venn diagrams, those wonderful little circles, provide me with a way to quickly organize information and discern patterns. So amazingly, in hindsight, I'm actually very grateful for those math courses, the very same ones I dreaded. It's probably pretty easy to see how disciplines like math or science can build useful pathways, but what about something with less obvious applicability, like maybe humanities, where you study things like philosophy? Why would that be important? Well, it's so that your brain can get used to thinking about thinking, exactly what we're doing right now. These neural pathways can help lead you to know yourself better and understand your own growth, your own humanness, and help connect you to the people with whom you share this planet. If you stop to deeply consider what each course has taught you about your approach to problem solving and thinking in general, you'll see that you've got a great foundation of neural networks that should serve you well for the rest of your life. So now that you know what learning is doing to your brain, what's next? Well, this is the cool part. Up to this point, much of what you've learned has been prescribed. The general education courses have been defined by the state, and even within your major, your pathway is limited to the courses approved for you. But learning isn't bound by your formal education, and I'm sure you've already figured that out. And you've probably built into your life learning experiences already, like martial arts or how to make TikTok videos or fantasy football, which, by the way, is an application of statistics. So there's that transference thing I was talking about. So based on your interests, you've already been creating your own neural networks, whether you are aware of it or not. That's awesome. But as they say, wait, there's more. Did you ever consider that you have the ability to direct the course of your brain's evolution? I suggest that if you give deep consideration to what you want your brain to do, then select learning activities that help program your brain in that direction, you can control the pathways that develop. Here's a quick illustration. I have several friends who are pilots, and their training program is intense, a lot of material to be learned quickly and then applied under extraordinary stress. When exam time rolled around, they often studied by having a classmate orally quiz them while they tried to learn to juggle. Juggle, of all things. Can you imagine why? Well, they wanted to teach their brains to access and apply information under stressful conditions. They were attempting to develop the neural pathways necessary for true multitasking. And by the way, if you think you're a multitasker, I encourage you to look it up, because true multitasking is extremely difficult and far more complicated than just being able to watch videos while you study. In fact, some say it isn't even possible, but I digress. I use this stuff all the time. Last year, most of my staff members had to work from home because of COVID. Now, I'm a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to technology, so it was a challenge for me to know how to communicate or collaborate, strategize, and execute our work in a virtual world. That's why I started studying online gaming. Not that I believe for 1 second that I'll ever parachute into Verdansk and start blasting away in Call of Duty, or that you'll ever see me at the fountain in Runeterra and League of Legends, but I tried to learn all I could so that I could be a better leader in this new normal kind of college, whether in person or virtual. So yes, I do make deliberate choices about what to learn, not just for what is interesting to me, but for the potential for learning transferability. That said, I encourage you to think about the ways you wish your brain might behave differently. Then choose to learn something new with the intention of not just learning that new thing, but of rewiring with a greater purpose. Finally, what's the future for that 3 pounds of gray jelly between your ears? Well, I'm happy to report that the ability to grow new neural pathways never stops. Yes, there are certain kinds of injuries and diseases that can impair growth, but it doesn't stop. And you can influence brain health very directly through learning. A recent Forbes magazine article cited a study in which a neuroscientist assigned various learning tasks to 200 older people. Some learned Photoshop, some learned quilting, and so on. They worked 15 hours a week over 3 months, and at the end of the study, those who learned a new skill had significantly improved memory, and those who learned a technology-related skill improved most of all. But research confirms that learning impacts more than just intellectual acuity. According to a U.S. News article published earlier this year, lifelong learning is positively correlated to mental health, physical health, and resilience, even longevity. Science Daily described a study that showed each year of education after school can add almost a year to your life. So I've given you 3 chunks of information. First, FSCJ has been helping to rewire your brain. Second, you can and should take control of your own rewiring through learning. And third, doing these things makes your life quantifiably better and probably longer. I'd like to close with this one last point. I hope I've given you good reasons for wanting to continue to learn well outside the parameters of your formal education. But aside from that, I hope you'll keep learning just for the fun of it. Rewiring and transferability of learning, brain health, and quality of life, all great things to think about. But if you're not having fun, it's not worth it. That said, I encourage you to find things that excite you, and then dig in with all the joy of a newborn discovering his toes. All the rest of it, the other stuff that will happen to your brain along the way, that's just the gravy. Perhaps the truest value of lifelong learning is the sheer joy of it. Thanks for letting me spend this time with you.
Thank you for your poignant insights about the transformational effects of lifelong learning, Dr. Herlocker.
Honored faculty, staff, guests, and fellow Phi Theta Kappa members, we will now proceed with inducting our newest members into the Upsilon Eta chapter of Phi Theta Kappa. These students have fulfilled all requirements for membership and have been selected because they have chosen scholarship, leadership, service, and fellowship as their hallmarks. I do hereby recommend them for acceptance into the Upsilon Eta chapter of Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society.
Students, you are about to be inducted into a scholarly fellowship that embraces community and state colleges, not only in Florida, but also throughout the nation and the world. The fellowship is Phi Theta Kappa, and your chapter is Upsilon Eta. Upon induction, you will experience among the members a spirit of scholarship to which you must dedicate yourself in order that the organization becomes meaningful to you.
I have in my hand a torch, symbolic of knowledge, which is the servant of wisdom, which dwells with the prudence and leads in the way of righteousness in the midst of the path of judgment.
I present to you a coronation as a symbol of a newly formed intellectual friendship.
Inductees, please virtually repeat after me. I do solemnly promise on this 19th day of November, 2021.
I do solemnly promise on this 19th day of November of 2021
to uphold the standards of Phi Theta Kappa
to uphold the standards of Phi Theta Kappa
and to make the object and aim foremost in my mind.
and to make the object and aim foremost in my mind.
And I do solemnly pledge allegiance to my fellow members
And I do solemnly pledge allegiance to my fellow members
and promise to aid them in all worldly endeavors.
and promise to aid them in all worldly endeavors.
On behalf of Upsilon Eta, it is my pleasure to welcome you into Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society and the lively fellowship of scholars. As we salute you and your accomplishments, we challenge you to search always for truth and to dedicate yourselves to the cultivation of a well-reasoned life, a prelude to service and honor.
At this time, we proudly display the names of 118 FSCJ students that have joined Phi Theta Kappa since April 2021.
And we're honored to present each distinguished inductee with a virtual torch of wisdom and a coronation as a symbol of our friendship. Congratulations, inductees and fellow Phi Theta Kappa members. Welcome to the Upsilon Eta family. At this time, I am pleased to introduce our Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs, Dr. John Wall, who will deliver this evening closing remarks.
Good evening, everybody. And first, of course, congratulations to our new inductees. We're so happy for you. I hope that tonight is just the beginning of an engagement that you will keep with Phi Theta Kappa. Let it be more than a line on your resume and something to celebrate. It has a lot to offer you, and I hope you will stay engaged. Let me also offer some appreciations and thank yous. First of all, to those of you who have joined us tonight who support and love our new inductees. We know how much you value and treasure their accomplishment. Thank you for all that you do to support them. I'd also like to thank Dr. Kathleen Seesvols and our technical team here tonight, our college president, Dr. John Avendano, for being here this evening, our advising team for Phi Theta Kappa, who's led by Dr. Mary James, who you got to see briefly tonight, and especially our officers who have put this together tonight. Very, very impressive. Thank you so much for all you do. As we close tonight to the new inductees, I'd just like to leave you with one thought. And that is that a lot of times when we think about an honor society, people tend to emphasize the academics. But what you heard here tonight were the 4 pillars. A well-rounded person is somebody who is Phi Theta Kappa. And getting inducted tonight represents not only something that you are showing to the world, I want you to think about something that you are showing to yourself as well. As you move forward, and we wish you every success, you're going to encounter highs and lows, places where you are coasting along, but there are going to be times when you're challenged. And when you are challenged, let tonight be a remembrance that you have the right stuff to succeed. We wish you every future success. Lolita.
Thank you for your inspirational and empowering words, Dr. Wall. Thank you also to our fellow Phi Theta Kappians and honored guests for joining us this evening. Congratulations again, and best wishes to the newly inducted members of the Upsilon Eta chapter of Phi Theta Kappa. Congratulations again.